Hi, everyone, and thanks for being with me. There is an article in The Guardian which I'm going to read a large portion of it to you because it says everything that we need to know about Trump and his negotiations over Ukraine. It's important, I think, for us to understand that Trump is weak, extremely weak. And this article highlights the weakness that is Donald Trump. So I'm going to discuss that with you in just a moment. So the article actually goes on to say that it starts actually by saying Trump is the world's greatest showman and the weakest strongman it has ever seen. And nothing is truer than that. And that there is a capitulation to Putin over Ukraine, and this reveals a pattern. Trump is a Patsy, giving everything away, getting little in return. But the most important thing, I think, for Trump is that he's perceived as being able to develop some sort of negotiating strategy with Russia, but failing miserably because as a result of all of this, he's turned the rest of the world against him. And it is obvious that, and I don't know how true any of this is, but I did hear some conversation recently saying that back in the 80s, Trump was a Russian asset. No, there's no evidence in any of that, but one wouldn't be surprised if Russia at some point had got to Trump and even through their encouragement of Trump and his ascendancy towards the presidency, have contributed in some way to all of that. And so I suspect that what we're seeing now is the end result of all the work that Russia has done in order to create the asset, which is Donald Trump. So further in this article, it says he parades as a strong man, but in fact he's weak. In the face of America's adversaries, Donald Trump is, as he might put it, a patsy, a sucker, a pushover. So true. He folds like a pack of cards. He's a human doormat. He's a loser. Just consider the gifts he's handed Vladimir Putin this week. He has brought Russia in from the diplomatic cold after 3 years of ostracism following Moscow's invasion of Ukraine in 2022, whose anniversary is nearly upon us. Sergei Lavrov, Putin's foreign minister, and this is worth noting, I think, was meant to be a persona non grata. He remains under international sanctions. Nevertheless, this week in Riyadh, he met Trump's Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, in so-called peace talks. The mere fact of that meeting gave Putin something he has long desired, parity with the US. It signaled that Washington regards Moscow as its equal, not a pariah state that has committed unconscionable acts of aggression, but a fellow great power, even superpower, but be treated with respect. Whatever was agreed in Saudi Arabia, Putin will chalk that up as a whim. So it goes on to say here, again, although this concession contained another larger one, for what is one of the great strategic goals of Putin, which explains so much of his activity over recent years, including his meddling in foreign elections. It is the fragmentation of the Western alliance. He loved Brexit, cheers on the far right in Europe, and backed Trump because he wants to see this crumbling of the Western bloc that has stood firm against him. For a US president to follow this script, icing out America's most long-standing allies, is a huge win for the Kremlin. Not least because he came straight after the US Vice President, J.D. Vance, had travelled to Munich, a city whose name will forever be associated with the appeasement of dictators, to berate the democracies of Europe, lecturing them on free speech and culture wars, while making no mention of Russia's suppression of all dissent, manifested in the unfortunate tendency of Putin's internal critics to end up dead. So at the end of the day, we have an alliance between the US and Putin, something which I would suggest that a decade ago we saw as impossible, maybe even less than that. But nevertheless, what has happened has been Trump acquiescing into the world's most powerful dictator, a man who doesn't care about other people, who's clearly endeavours to abolish any criticism that he has. And the scary thing about that for me is that I think Trump wishes to be like him. Trump would love to have the power and authority to eradicate anybody in his sphere who disagrees with him. And over time, unless we're really, really careful, that's exactly what Trump will endeavour to do. At this particular point, he clearly doesn't care about Ukraine. He has lied about Ukraine. He has lied about Zelensky. He has lied about them entering the war. He's done everything he can to gaslight us about what is happening in Ukraine. What needs to be recognised, I think, is that he's failing on all of those counts, and that the West in particular, and in particular Europe, will turn against him. We're waiting to see what happens here in Australia, but I'm not holding my breath in relation to any of that. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Ring the bell for further notifications. In the meantime, take care, look after yourselves, and more importantly, be safe.